Hello, man. I think we're live here or recording, obviously. For all of you who are interested in this presentation, the truth about hormones, cardiovascular risk, and weight loss resistance. I tell you, I'm excited about this one. I'm all jacked up because I know if you listen to this whole presentation, make some goals, set a plan, and most importantly, take action, your life could change. You could literally save your life. All right. This is serious business. It's struggles in life. It's health. It's, cardiovascular risk alone is the number one killer among men and women in the United States still to this day. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can test, we can get proactive, and we can change our lives in order to make that risk plummet. All right. It doesn't matter where you are, how old you are, what you have going on. This talk is for you. All right. So I'm going to jump right to it. Let's start. I'm going to start figuring out how to share my screen and get right to the presentation. All right. Because I got a lot of information for you, and we're going to go and rock it all. So hopefully you all can see my screen. As I already said, the truth about hormones, cardiovascular disease, and weight loss resistance, what you really need to know. Okay, a little bit about me. If you have no idea who I am, my name is Dr. Scott Keller. All right, so I'm a husband, a daddy to 3. Those are my 2 most important jobs, right? And I'm a part-time stable boy. If you don't know what in the world I'm talking about, we live in the country. We have a whole herd of horses. We have chickens and dogs and cats, all the things to take care of. And I tell you, I love it. And it's work, right? And it's great to see our kids become active in that and teaching them real work ethic and how to take care of animals, the responsibility of that. And so it's fun to watch them ride our horses and compete in rodeos and things like that. So, and then I muck stalls, I scoop poop, I feed, I do chores, I throw hay bales, all the fun things, right? So I'm a doctor of functional medicine. Functional medicine has changed my life, and functional medicine you're going to learn a little bit about tonight. But it's really root cause healthcare, getting down to the roots of what's going on and with you, and not just being reactive and waiting until you have something, some disease, some condition, some test that tells you your health is in trouble. We want to be the people who get down to the roots and then help you unlock and uncover and getting answers, and also providing hope that you can dig yourself out of that hole. So I love fitness and all things health. I'm a fierce competitor at heart. Basically, I take that into my work every day with patients. I might not be the smartest guy in the world. I may not have all of the answers, but I'm also a learner. I bring in that fierce competitiveness. If I need to figure something out for you, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my best to do it, right? And I never want to be the smartest person in the room. That's just kind of the philosophy I've always wanted to live by is, man, there are so many brilliant people out there. And whether that's business mentors or mindset coaches or functional medicine practitioners that have been there, done that, and done it all, I want to learn from them. And it's just a mindset and a philosophy that I think takes me far in life. I have a passion and calling to serve people. I knew back when I was young and then in undergrad school, I knew I wanted to do something in health because I wanted to help people. And it's been a journey. I've done a lot of things over my career, from, practicing chiropractic to being an exercise science and specialist in rehabilitation and physical injury, part of a sports medicine team at a university, helping athletes. I mean, I've just done all sorts of things, but it all culminated, I guess is what I'm trying to say, into what I'm doing now. How am I going to have the biggest impact in people's lives? How can I serve them? I don't want you to struggle and to have a hard life. I don't want you just to survive. I want you to thrive, right? That cliche kind of term, why survive when you can thrive? It's so true, though. I'm an educator and a teacher at heart. I love presenting. I don't care if I'm talking to one person or 1,000 people. I've had the opportunity and been blessed in my life to be able to travel the country and teach a lot of seminars, a lot of technique things, and I absolutely love it. And even on an individual basis, man, my patients will tell you, like, I get fired up talking to a group of them or just one-on-one, because I want them to know the truth and I want them to live a better life, right? This is my why. So this is how I often frame things for patients of mine and people I'm working with is, what's your why? Like, why do you want to be healthier? Why do you want to be able to be physically active? Why? What is it? Is it for yourself? That's a big enough reason and good enough reason right there. You just want to feel better and function better. My why and why I want to do those things is for this picture right here. Those 3 kiddos depend on me and their mom, right? And we need to be an example to them. We need to show them the way in this kind of crazy world we live in disinformation and, all the stuff out there. We want to be examples of how to live and lead a healthy lifestyle. And it starts with me, right? And what I'm doing. Now, the word doctor is Latin for teacher or to teach, right? And I truly believe that in our healthcare system as we know it today, we've lost this meaning. So doctors of all sorts are such good people. I know so many medical doctors and specialists and surgeons and all across the board. And man, there's just a lot of good people, good-hearted people. But I'll tell you what, we're taught and also held captive by a system that is not about teaching the truth. It is about time, lack of time, how busy we all are, how much money, power, and profits by those above us that control and dictate it, right? Like, we could talk about insurance companies and big pharma and all of that all day long, but I'll tell you, it comes from the horse's mouth. A lot of people, even in medicine, say, I don't have time. I don't have time to spend with people to really teach them what's going on. And then it comes down to, they might not know how to teach them. Like the medical training that a lot of medical doctors get. I just was talking to a friend, primary care physician with just the other week, and he was talking about how they literally don't get taught nutrition. They don't know nutrition unless they've studied it for themselves, and a lot of them just don't have time to do that. So that is what this is all about. That's what functional medicine is all about. That's what I'm all about. I think knowledge is power, and the more you know about your body, the more you can take action to correct what's going on, right? So the disclaimer for this course, any courses I take, of course, are, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you, your life, your health. So it's always obviously advisable to speak to a professional who can help you on an individual level. Whether I talk about supplements or lifestyle stuff, whatever it is, that is not advice for you specifically, right? So of course I have to say that, but it really is true. So I have taken people off of supplements. I have advised them to seek help from their medical doctors to get off of medications because they're absolutely contraindicated for maybe something else they have going on. Like, things are missed, things are overlooked, things are not taught, things are just ignored. It happens all the time, everybody. So this is why we do what we do. And the goals for today, these 3 subjects that we're talking about are big subjects. I wish we had hours and hours and hours to take an in-depth look, but we just don't, right? We could be here all day, all weekend. I want you to learn something new that you haven't heard before. I want you to leave feeling more empowered and feeling better about advocating for your own health and not just trusting providers blindly, which is so many of us what we do and with the trap that we get into. I want you to leave with answers and hope that your struggles are my struggles, are your neighbor's struggles, and together we can overcome anything, any obstacle, any hurdle that is put in our path, and we can better obtain life through better health. You can do that. Now, this is what it takes. Anybody can make a goal. Most people can make a plan, but oftentimes you need help to make a good plan. But very few people take action. Like, what are the actual action steps? And then to stay disciplined to see that plan and then those goals come to fruition. Okay, so that is the key, everybody. It's a mindset thing. It's a discipline thing. So I don't often start talks like this with my story, but my story is your story. So many people are struggling with the same things. My story has been full of ups and downs. It's an ongoing story that's going to be until the day I die and unfolding every day more and more and more. But I was one who was checking off the boxes, right? What are the boxes? Healthy lifestyle. Did my best to live a healthy lifestyle. fitness has always been a passion of mine, playing football through college and then, getting into grad school and always making that a part of my routine. Eating healthy, limiting chemical exposure and toxicity in this world is hard, but I've done it the best I can, taking care of my body physically. But I'll tell you what, I wasn't happy. I was chronically fatigued. I was drained of energy and just giving my family, my kids, my wife leftovers. I was stressed out. I was burnout. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. How many of us are in this position, right? Life is stressful, right? So, what can you do about it? So then entered functional medicine. So I did a lot of other things. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I was practicing functional medicine on myself without even knowing it, right? And then I started to study it. And then I started to bring it to patients of mine and people in my community. I had been searching for the right answers long before I practiced it, right? So this is what's exciting is you can tap into what's actually out there, so many cool things to figure out what's going on with you. And that's where I was at. So this was the truth about it. Like my labs, my functional labs, the truth about what was going on inside of me. I had no idea checking all those boxes, like what was actually happening in me. This is one example. I did a stool analysis assessment on myself, looking at my gut health. Okay, we're going to talk about the gut a little bit longer, but so many people say the gut is kind of the root of all things, right? Negative in our lives, health struggles. So you can see in the green what's called expected or beneficial flora. These are the bacteria in your gut that you absolutely need and are crucial to proper health and optimal health. You can see we want +4 of all of those. I had not only some +3s and +1s, but I had 0 NG, means no growth, of 2 of the most important bacteria in my gut that make and produce certain things and detoxify. And then on the other side, the yellows, these are commensal or imbalanced flora, okay? Bacteria that we don't necessarily want in our gut. I was really high in a lot of these. Now, here's the thing. I didn't have a lot of gut issues, signs and symptoms. A lot of you do, but I didn't. I kind of got, a little constipation, some gassiness, and especially I knew I couldn't eat gluten. I was sensitive to that and had an intolerance to that. I would get inflamed and things, but there was still something going on in there that I had no idea about. And this helped me understand what was going on and what I needed to do to correct it. This is another one page out of about a lab that I love that's about 30 pages long. This is called the citric acid cycle. If you don't know what the heck this is, back in high school chemistry class, you probably learned about this. But basically, we take in fat, carbohydrate, and proteins in our diet. We have to convert those 3 things into a lot of other things, and then they enter into this cycle, this circle, to make energy called ATP. Like, this is crucial. I was chronically fatigued. I was tired. I had to have caffeine and energy drinks or take a nap in order to get through my day. That's not normal, guys. If that's you, that's not normal. So you can see here, anywhere that you see yellow or red areas, that part of this energy production cycle was not working sufficiently or optimally. And then you can see each one of these conversions or transitions takes certain minerals, vitamins, magnesium, B vitamins are so common, iron, glutathione, these kind of things are holding up this cycle in me. And I had no idea. My body was starved of these nutrients that were essential for this energy production, right? It just started, like light bulbs just started going off, like, oh my gosh, like, how do I fix this? Okay, that's what we're going to get into today. These types of labs are not being done in traditional healthcare. Like, this is not something you're going to have tested and see. Once in a blue moon, I'll see somebody that's done something like this, right? So we need to figure that out. And then there came my genetics. I wanted to know, okay, well, what about genetic predisposition? You can see these 7 things in the column on the left, like the most crucial things in our body: inflammation, detoxification, oxidative stress, insulin, right? All of these things. I had moderate to high risk factors in genetic, like bad things, in 6 of the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there's 7. That's crazy. So on paper, with my genetics and my DNA, I would be a wreck. I would be a mess if I didn't have the lifestyle to take care of myself. Okay. So, and then what this shows is you see these little dots over here. We want white dots. So again, these are the same areas, and these are showing the actual genes, the genetics. If you have blue dots, that is bad news. Look how many blue dots I had. I am full of genetic predispositions for so many things, right? That I would be an absolute mess. Like I wouldn't recover. I would have chronic pain. I would have probably all sorts of gut issues, cardiovascular stuff going on. Like at 40, almost 41 years old, at this point in time, man, this is scary looking at this on paper. But here comes the beautiful thing, the science of epigenetics. The genetics are the blueprint. We can change the blueprint. We can change the expression of these genes, of this DNA through lifestyle, through functional medicine, through exercise, through proper nutrition. Like you can shut or suppress these genes off and live a healthy, awesome life, no matter what it says on the paper. So this is where I have to get a little vulnerable. You know, I don't love to share pictures of myself, and nor does physique and pictures mean everything. Everybody has a different body shape and size. It's all about the health of what's going on underneath the surface, right? But so many things you can see on the outside, people are living very unhealthy. So here's a picture of me at about 32 years old. I was checking all the boxes. I actually was competing at this point in life competitively in the sport of CrossFit. So I was working out a lot. I was really dialed in with my nutrition. And I'll tell you what, I still felt puffy. I still just felt like something was going on, like inflammation in my body. The gut issues that I didn't even know I had were at the root of a lot of that. I had irregular or struggle to have bowel movements. Like what that means is like I would go, but man, I'd have to sit there for a while and get a hard time from my wife saying, why do you spend so much time in the bathroom? It's not because I wanted to get away from her or the kids or anything like that. It's because it just wasn't easy for me to take a number 2. Chronic fatigue and energy were at the top of the list of my struggles. Inflammation was obviously abundant in my body. And then I had struggles with anxiety, right? Some of that mental health stuff, stress and anxiety. This is me at 40 years old. Functional medicine changed my life. Again, physique isn't everything. You don't have to have a 6-pack abs and veins popping out in order to be healthy. That is not the point here. But this is when I started feeling, man, I'm strong at 40. I might be stronger than I was at 20, 25. I'm arguably in the best shape of my life, even playing college athletics, right? Leaner due to less inflammation, less water retention, all of these things. 3 bowel movements a day. Just this morning before noon, I had 2. Before noon, I had 2 good ones, 2 easy ones. Detoxification at its finest. Our body's meant to do that, right? Energy, no problems, right? Don't have to depend on the caffeine anymore. And the anxiety is so much more under control if I just do the right things and live the way that I know I should live, right? So this is somewhere you can get there. You can be me. My story is your story, is all of our stories, okay? We all just look a little different and need to attack this in a different way. What the heck is my point here? Your past story does not define you. Your genetics do not define you. You have the power to change things, to change the trajectory of your life. You don't need to depend on our reactive medical system and wait for them to tell you, fill in the blank, you have diabetes, you have cardiovascular disease, you have whatever it may be, okay? You do not have to wait for that. Now, here's a quote that I just love. You cannot out-medicate. You cannot out-diet. You cannot out-fitness, and you cannot out-supplement a stressed-out lifestyle. We're going to talk about stress pretty in-depthly tonight and how it relates to those 3 big categories that we're going to hit today. You cannot beat it, okay? So that should be on the top of your list. Key concepts for the rest of this talk. Probably the most important concept for you to have from the beginning and to leave with today is this, that no system of the body works independently. All systems work together in conjunction with each other, all playing different roles. The brain, the stomach, the heart, the intestines, the bones, the muscles, the nervous system, the kidneys, all of it, guys, intertwines and interrelates. So all of the specialists we have access to are great. They're so smart. They're here to help. But it also has been one of the roadblocks in the way our healthcare system is set up. The specialists look at one thing or one system. There's no communication amongst, and no one is looking at the body as a whole, an ecosystem of all parts working together to create balance and homeostasis, health, right? That's what's missing in our medical system. Okay, this little thing right here is a cell. There's so much complex stuff that goes on in every single cell in our body. And most doctors are not going to the roots of the problem, which is so often cellular toxicity and cellular inflammation, right? If our cells are not healthy, we are not healthy. Cellular regeneration is the most important thing, even trumping things like detoxification, which are very common practices out there. Oh, we need to detoxify. Yes, maybe, but if you're not detoxifying and repairing your cells, you're missing the boat. Okay, so that's something we have to focus on, and we'll talk about how to do that through this talk. Now, cardiometabolic health, also known as cellular health in our country, is at a devastating level. I'm telling you. Did you know that only 6.8% of us sitting in this room have good cardiometabolic health? That is mind-boggling, right? So this is one of the reasons we are so unhealthy as a country. It's not only sad, but it's scary as it continues to get worse with the generations that are up and coming. Our kids have more chronic illness, more mental health struggles than ever before in the history of man. Metabolic health is defined as optimal levels of 5 clinical markers, is what the scientists, the AMA uses, is blood sugar levels, triglycerides, high density lipoprotein or HDL, the good cholesterol, okay? Blood pressure, and waist circumference. Why is waist circumference so important? Because the more fat you have around the middle, around the organs, around the gut, the worse off your health will be. This 6.8% was not just some small study. 55,000 people over the age of 20 were in this study. This is mind-boggling. Okay. Another key concept, Dr. Alessio Fasano of Harvard states. Now, before I say what he states, who's this guy? Why should I trust him? Is he smart? I mean, this dude knows his stuff. He's the director of immunology and biology research at General Mass Gen. Okay. He's the founder of the Center for Celiac Research. The man knows the gastrointestinal system, the gut. He's a professor in pediatric gastroenterology at Harvard, and that's how he practices in his clinic as well. So the guy knows a little bit about the gut and a little bit about immunology and a little bit of probably about everything. And here's a study that's fascinating that he headed up. But here's what he said. All disease starts in the gut. That should blow your mind. If you've never paid attention to your gut health, you're missing the boat. All disease starts in the gut. Okay, we're going to dive into that a little bit later. Many of us will have lab tests done with our medical doctors and find problems, minor or severe. That's, just kind of reality. But normal blood tests or normal labs or normal colonoscopies or normal things happens all the time when obviously things aren't normal. You're struggling, there's something going on, or you feel fine, but are you really? That was the case for me. Like in a lot of ways, I'm like, man, I'm checking all the boxes. I feel pretty good, but something's going on. Or you're told everything looks good, but I'll tell you, I catch things very frequently that are putting people at risk, but they were told it all looked good. So they didn't know what to do. Who is it? Okay, I guess everything's good until it's not, right? Why is this? Because not deep enough level of testing is happening to really uncover what is going on in you. And I firmly believe it is often due to the reactive nature of our traditional medicine system that limits our health. You have to take action yourself. You have to advocate for yourself so often, or find someone, like myself, who's going to dig, who's going to investigate and figure out what's going on. Now, here's a list of the top 10 causes of death in America. 9 out of 10 of these are directly linked to cellular metabolic health issues and chronic inflammation. Which one's not? accidents, right? So heart disease, cancer, all the things that are killing us at the highest rates are directly caused from cellular metabolic health issues and chronic inflammation. That alone should give you a reason to figure this out. Now, first topic, hormones. Such a simple topic, right? Like hormones. Oh, easy. Yeah, let's cover that in the next 5 minutes. Yeah, I wish, right? But I do want to simplify it a little bit today so you can understand a few key concepts, understand what you can do, and practical ways to start improving your hormones, both men and women, okay? Also, I don't want you to get stuck in the hormone trap. There's a hormone trap. It's so prevalent in our culture nowadays because hormones are a big deal and they're dysregulated in almost all of us. So what does the hormone trap mean, right? It means most of the time that we do not do the proper testing and analysis to know exactly what's going on in the body, and we're just given a medication or a drug. And that's like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole, guys. It's gonna like change things a little bit, and people definitely get a lot of benefit out of hormone replacement therapy, for example, but are you treating the root cause of what's going on, or are you just putting a Band-Aid over the bullet hole? Hormones, and so imagine being convicted of a crime you didn't commit, you're in jail, you're in prison, and you know you're innocent. This is what's happening to the hormones in our bodies so often. Most of you have probably heard of the gut-brain axis, right? The gut is our second brain. It communicates directly with the brain via a lot of ways, hormones and neurotransmitters, but even the nervous system via the vagus nerve, if you know what that is. And this is such a crucial thing to understand. So the three key things that are being missed, ignored, or flat out that doctors just don't know need to be looked at with hormone dysregulation, right? So if you're suffering from hormone dysregulation, you have all the symptoms, you're fatigued all the time, you have issues with periods, you have, issues with sleep. Men, we have anxiety and depression, women too. I mean, just all of these symptoms of hormone dysregulation. Here's what you need to look at. You need to look at your gut health. You need to look at the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and cortisol, basically stress hormone cortisol produced by the adrenal glands. And you need to look at your blood sugar. Your blood sugar, is it regulated? Is it dysregulated? These three things are keys into figuring out your hormones. How many of you have spoken to your doctor about your hormones or had treatments, right? Yeah, lots of people probably raised their hand on that. Have these three things been discussed and tested in depth? More than likely, 99% of you would say no. I never even, no one even ever brought any of those up is the most common thing, right? Why is that, man? It's so frustrating because it's not being looked at. So number one, the gut and hormones, this gut-brain axis. What does the gut do? Well, it absorbs, transports essential nutrients needed for all processes in the body, really, including hormone production and regulation. Okay, so if you want to know more about the gut, a few months ago, I did a gut health masterclass. The recording is free. You can find it on my social media and my link trees. Go watch that. It was like 2.5 hours of information on just the gut alone. So obviously, I'm going to just skim the surface here, but production and regulation of hormones. The bacteria in the gut literally produce hormones as well as telling the brain what to do with the sex organs and other organs and the endocrine system in order to suppress hormones, produce hormones. There's this constant feedback going on between these two areas. Your gut microbiome, the bacteria influence nearly every hormone in the body in some way, shape, or form, signaling to the glands in your body, to your brain, like I just said, and to the hypothalamus specifically. So that's where the gut and the HPA axis connect directly, letting them know how much of each hormone should be created and released. Okay, so super crucial to understand that. The gut plays a huge role. Number two, the HPA axis and hormones, right? This hypothalamus is in the brain, the pituitary gland is in the brain, and then the adrenal glands are on top of your kidneys, shown right here. They produce cortisol. So the HPA axis release both stimulating and inhibiting hormones, which then act on the pituitary gland to direct the functions of the thyroid gland, for example, for energy, metabolism, and vitality. How many people have struggled with their thyroid gland and they've just been put on a thyroid hormone, right? Well, is it the hypothalamus? Is it the pituitary gland? Is it the adrenal glands? Is it the gut? Is it the hormones? Is it all of these things that are causing the thyroid to not work efficiently and optimally, right? That's the question, right? The adrenal glands produce stress hormones such as cortisol. The adrenal glands also produce sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. If you didn't know that, boom, right? Metabolism, obviously, as well. The reproductive organs. What don't the sex organs, the ovaries and the testicles, what doesn't that affect in those hormones, right? Obviously, everything. So important to look at that HPA axis. Blood sugar regulation and hormones. Blood sugar dysregulation leads to inflammation. Simple as that. We could just stop right there. Inflammation is underlying every disease process in the body. Okay, so cortisol specifically is also a crucial player in blood sugar regulation. It's one of its primary jobs. So as blood sugar dips, cortisol is released by the adrenal glands, and it tells the body to release stored sugar out into the bloodstream. So think about that. If you're under chronic stress, cortisol is released constantly, which increases blood sugar levels constantly, which is going to increase inflammation in your body and all sorts of other stuff. So here you go. Chronically elevated cortisol equals chronically signaling to increase blood sugar equals chronic elevation in insulin, which can lead to then your body's going to figure this out. It's going to lead to insulin resistance. It's going to lead to more inflammation. And then it's going to lead to fill in the blank. Cardiovascular risk factors, hormone dysregulation, gut issues, brain and mental health issues. You fill in the blank here. So many things can be deeply rooted back to these three issues. Okay, this is what blood sugar, like a chart, would look like. Most of us live this purple line. We spike, we crash. We spike, we crash. This was me, right? So the example for me was, man, I'd be working in the morning, I'd eat lunch, and then I'd have an afternoon shift, and I would feel like I either needed to take a nap or I would go grab an energy drink or a coffee to make it through the afternoon. And then I would crash again at night, right? Like not giving my kids what they need and my wife, like that's the leftover thing I was talking about earlier. We want to live this green line, this kind of nice, steady blood sugars regulated. It goes up and down naturally, of course, but it stays within these parameters. And that is going to decrease all of the negative stuff that we just talked about. So how do you do that? Well, that's the question. Chronic stress, chronic cortisol release, chronic blood sugar issues, chronic inflammation, chronic adrenal gland dysregulation, which leads to, again, said this already, chronic energy issues, hormone dysregulation, mental health, cardiovascular risk, diabetes, recovery and healing time, chronic pain, immune system issues. All of this can be deeply, deeply rooted in those three things that interrelate and intertwine with each other. So there is another doctor, aside from Dr. Fasano, who has become one of the most trusted and utilized doctors in the world. Who is the doctor, and what does this doctor have to say about this subject? The name is Dr. Google, right? So somebody get on their phone right now and type this in. Is blood sugar regulation important? Question mark. See what you see. I mean, even Dr. Google, I mean, you just start reading the things and it's like, oh my gosh, yes, blood sugar regulation is important. It's going to say, well, you have dysregulated blood sugar to the extreme and for long enough, it's going to kill you. I mean, that's Dr. Google's pretty honest, and that's true, right? So how about this one? Is controlling cortisol important? That stress hormone from our adrenal glands, from that HPA axis. Is that important? Dr. Google's going to tell you a lot of stuff that's scary if you read into it, right? So yes, these two things, this is just kind of my playful way of saying, okay, if you don't trust me, you might trust Dr. Google, and there he or she is. I don't know if Dr. Google's a man or a woman, but they're going to tell you the truth, right? So chronic elevation of cortisol can also literally shut down your ovaries and testicles, right? So your sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, are just going to go crazy and shut down and limit the production if you have this chronic elevation of stress in your life. Right? This imbalance or disruption can lead to irregular menstrual cycles, changes in flow, even missed periods, or the myriad of other symptoms that come along with dysregulation of these sex hormones in men and women. Fatigue, libido issues, I mean, gosh, depression and mental health, you name it, guys. This is the stuff that's underlying when we have dysregulated hormones. So there's the kidney, there's the little hat it wears, that's called the adrenal gland, and it directly is involved to, that the ovaries, the testicles, and our sex organs. And then you got this guy. He's not a happy little cell. He's full of inflammation. He's miserable in life. He's trudging through life like, man, I don't even know if I can anymore, right? That's chronic inflammation, right? So just as Dr. Fasano states that all disease begins in the gut, we also know that every single health struggle has chronic inflammation at its core. This is the thing that if your body is inflamed, it's not being tested very often, and it is probably the easiest and cheapest thing that you can actually test for in just some easy blood panels. And even hormones are going to be victim to this chronic inflammatory process that most of us have in our body. The obsession with balancing our hormones is real. Like, we should be obsessed about it, but only focusing on the hormones misses the mark completely. Testing for totals of the hormones, for example, does not tell you the whole story. It's the most common lab work that is done, and then a recommendation is made based on that alone. So, for example, we test my total testosterone as a man should be 600, 700, 800, right? And if it's 200 or 300, I'm put on testosterone replacement therapy, right? Is that the smartest thing? You may need that. And it's an individual basis that is needed and necessary, and fascinating how it can work. Same thing with estrogen and progesterone and female sex hormones. But have we really dove into what's causing those dysregulations? Have we really weighed the risks and benefits? Has your doctor told you, okay, if you start hormone replacement therapy, here's the consequence over the long run. Here's the side effects. Here's how your body's going to become dependent on them. Instead of really truly healing from the inside out. It's a very reactive piece to the puzzle. I want to encourage you all to be proactive. And again, I'm going to say it again, hormone replacement therapy is not the bad guy. It's the lack of investigation before going that route, in my opinion. Now, if you're on hormone replacement therapy, not the end of the world. Like, I work with people all the time that have been on whatever hormone replacement therapy, men, women alike. And I'll tell you what, you start to actually look at these three things and other things that we've talked about, and you start fixing and healing the body from the inside out. Your body will become less dependent on those things, and potentially we can change that in the future, right? We must understand that hormones are often responding to some other factor or stressor in the body. So this is like a reactive response, not just like the treatment, but the hormones are reacting to other stressors that are going on in the body. So finding that root cause is, literally the key. So here's a few questions. Is this you? Is life coming at you from a million directions? And are you just like stress and fatigue and energy? Like, there's so many things. There's jobs, there's spouses, there's partners, there's kids, there's grandkids. There's so many things. There's health struggles, right, that just bog us down. So what the heck does this HPA axis have to do with me? Is mine dysregulated? That's the question. Well, test. Don't guess. You can test it. It's easy. Are my sex hormones dysregulated? Test. Don't guess. Do I have blood sugar dysregulation? Test. Don't guess. Is my body inflamed? Test. Don't guess. Is the HPA axis, blood sugars, and the full story of hormones being evaluated and managed by most doctors if I go in for hormone checks? And the gut, I should have put the gut on there. The answer is no. Like, no, 99.9% of the time. Now, some of you may have gone into a physician who does do all these things. That's amazing. It's not the norm. It's just not the norm. Okay. What are some of the most common signs and symptoms of hormone dysregulation? So now we've talked about that. Like, hormones can be all out of whack, and the three most common reasons for that. So now what are the signs and symptoms? So signs of estrogen and progesterone dysregulation. Okay. You can read the list, but man, fatigue, depression, anxiety, bone issues, trouble concentrating, mental health, moodiness, irritability, hot flashes, night sweats, all the irregular period stuff, all of that, skin issues, skin conditions, etc. In men, high estrogen levels can lead to depression, anxiety, irritability, tiredness, sleeplessness, and mood swings. So, ladies, if you have a dude who's irritable and angry and anxious, what do they need? That might not be like their personality. Maybe it is. But it's like more than likely they are low testosterone and high estrogen. or something's going on, right? Let's test them. Let's not just throw testosterone at them, because that can actually feed into a negative cycle. Testosterone is actually dumped into the estrogen pathway if other things aren't going right, which I'll get to that in a second. But it's a super crucial thing to know all of these things. Signs of testosterone dysregulation in men: reduced sex drive, erectile dysfunction, loss of body hair, beard growth, loss of lean muscle mass, of course, feeling tired all the time, fatigue, obesity, gaining weight, symptoms of depression, poor memory, focus, not doing well at work, all these things. In women, high testosterone is the deeper voice, the enlarged clitoris, the excess body hair, facial hair growing more than you've ever had before, irregular absent menstrual cycles, acne, fatigue, motivation. And then obviously testosterone low in women can lead to that fatigue, that motivation, libido, and orgasm issues, concentration issues, and weight gain, right? This is just a short list, but there's a lot of stuff there that a lot of us are struggling with, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about cortisol, specifically the stress hormone cortisol. So this is like a picture of what a lab might say. So you take cortisol samples through your day. You should have a very specific pattern of cortisol. It should spike in the morning and then gradually go down through the day until you go to sleep at night at its lowest level, is actually about 2 or 3 a.m. So if your cortisol hormones are all over the place, you're going to have all sorts of things going on. So I wanted to outline that for you a little bit. High early morning cortisol levels. So again, if your cortisol is higher in the morning than it should be, you could be not sleeping through the night. Your mind races the minute you wake up. You're edgy and confrontational in the morning, maybe irritable. Your energy crashes and burns sometime around mid-morning or after lunch, like myself. Here's what that map would look like. So the blue's normal, the red or the orange would be an irregular high early morning cortisol curve, okay? High cortisol levels through the day could be constantly behind schedule and racing to catch up. You're exhausted and hyper, but at the same time, people comment on how fast you talk, kind of like I am right now, but I'm doing it for a reason. You're easily irritated and feel little enthusiasm for anything, right? So cortisol spikes and then it just stays constant all day long and never comes down naturally like it's supposed to. Right? And then high evening cortisol levels. If you find yourself online a lot at 9 p.m. reading the news, debating others on social media, whatever, you're falling asleep is nearly impossible. It can take hours for you to fall asleep. You don't stay asleep. You worry in the evenings. You're argumentative. You're irritable, distracted. You distract yourself by online time or TV or whatever. Here's what your curve probably looks like. So spiking at night should not happen. That's going to dysregulate all sorts of stuff. And then finally, low cortisol levels throughout the day. Some people have been living the high cortisol life for so long, and that sympathetic fight or flight nervous system part of all of this is literally running out of gas, and you literally start decreasing cortisol production, which is a whole problem in and of itself. So you're dragging through each day. Even after you sleep, you're still tired. It takes high octane coffee or intense exercise to pull you up, but it doesn't last that long. You fall asleep everywhere, right? You can fall asleep sitting up. That used to be me. Okay, here's what your cortisol might look like. Flat line. Okay, so these are things that you can test and see where are you at, and then you can start fine-tuning what you need to do to heal that cortisol curve. What are some of the symptoms of high cortisol? Cortisol increases the permeability of the gut. That's bad news. Everything we talked about earlier. If your gut is too permeable, more things are going to get through that shouldn't. It's going to lead to absorption, regulation issues, all sorts of bad stuff. So, fatigue, irritability, headaches, intestinal problems like constipation, bloating, diarrhea, anxiety, depression, weight gain, increased blood pressure, all signs of high cortisol, low libido, all of these things we talked about with sex hormones. So what's the single best and most effective way to help regulate cortisol and the cortisol awakening response? So first thing in the morning, it should spike and then goes down. That's called the cortisol awakening response. What's the best way to regulate that? Any guesses? And it's free. Natural light, natural sunlight, first thing in the morning, getting outside, literally outside, not through a window, because that's going to block some of that light and those rays that we need, but around sunrise. The closer you can get to sunrise, the better. The studies have shown this is the best way to start that cortisol awakening response. So go out 5-10 minutes. If longer, great. Start getting that morning routine kind of centered around getting this natural light, getting your body moving, going for a walk. So many things about morning routines that I could talk about. It's a whole nother topic for another day. But, and then also going out at sunset is a great thing for cortisol regulation towards the nighttime, getting those different rays where the sun's coming down, it calms the body. Doing some breath work with it would be amazing. This is going to really, really help start regulate those cortisol levels. So time check, where am I? Okay, 45 minutes. So we're good, we're going good. So here's an example. Hormone testing, like I said earlier, knowing totals of the sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. If you know the totals, that doesn't really tell you much because there's a whole pathway of things. Okay, so this is called a Dutch test or Dutch plus test. It's going to show you all of those levels. It's going to show you other things like DHEA, which is the precursor to all sex hormones. Guess where DHEA is made? The adrenal glands. So again, this stress adrenal gland HPA axis is so crucial because DHEA is made mostly in the adrenal glands. If they're not functioning properly, that's going to affect the production of all of these other hormones, right? So you get in the picture, getting the links here. And then this is like, going down from this above picture, estrogen, for example, and progesterone kind of shown here. The testosterone, androgens are on the left side. So then focus here, this E1, E2, E3 area. This person has high estrogen in all forms. So then what we look at is starting here where these 3 colored arrows are. Estrogen is converted into 3 different pathways. What's cool about this is we know we want this green pathway to something leading to 2-OH-E1 is what it's called. The red arrow leading to 4-OH, this is the estrogen that is most associated with cancer and other inflammatory conditions. So we can see literally if your estrogen, men and women, is getting diverted to this 4-OH pathway, that is a big, big, big red flag. And the blue one's kind of neutral. It doesn't really kind of associate good or bad. And then further from that, we can see how's that being dumped out of the body, right? We need to get rid of it. We need to detoxify. And so that's where genetics come in. This COMT and methylation are 2 enzymes that basically you can have deletions or problems with in your DNA, which I do, right? This is one of the things that showed on my DNA panel. And then it's going to inhibit the body from getting rid of the estrogen. So that's going to be a problem in and of itself. It's like a bathtub. You got all this estrogen, which is like the bathtub's filling up, but then the drain is this pathway down here on the bottom and the bottom left. You have to be able to get rid of it or else it's going to overflow, right? It's going to back up. So a lot of us have a sluggish or a partially covered drain in our bathtub, which is leading to this estrogen dominance that so many of us men and women have, right? So again, just the depth of these functional labs is absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, the point is it's not enough to have enough of the hormones, thyroid hormones, sex hormones, vitamins, and nutrients even still. They have to reach where they need to go to be effective in their job, right? So roadblocks are often there. Traffic jams are happening. The gut and stress are often underlying so many of these hormonal issues. Finding out what's causing that traffic jam, that roadblock is the first place is the key and also part of the solution. Clearing the roadblocks by testing and then starting to unblock that road, right? Everyone does not need the same thing, the same nutrition plan, the same supplements, the same protocols. Everyone is so unique and individual, and that's how we have to treat it. Most doctors are just flat out not trained in this. It's as simple as that. Doctors are trained to diagnose and then what medication to give. That's it. Standards of care, they have to follow a lot of times, made by pharma, insurance companies, etc., allowing only certain testing and then only covering and paying for certain things. And this, man, it's frustrating and it's annoying for you to say, oh, well, just functional medicine testing, is that covered by insurance? Well, maybe, but maybe not. And primary care doctors, specialists aren't ordering the tests mostly because of that. And because not just because of that, because they might not even know about them or know how to interpret them, right? Yes. Okay. I hear you. It's the way of our system. But, again, this is an investment in your health and in your life. So you got to start looking at it like that. We as providers, including myself in the past, have been controlled by those entities. And this is why you're seeing movements in healthcare for providers getting out of insurance altogether, right? So it's happening. And the last thing I believe in hormones, I have to hit this. Xenoestrogens. What the heck is a xenoestrogen? Basically, they're endocrine disruptors. So they disrupt all of your hormones, right? So what does that mean? So they're foreign estrogens, basically. They're substances that are close enough in molecular structure that they bind to all their estrogen receptor sites throughout our body. And yes, you have estrogen receptor sites all over your body. It's not just your sex hormones. And that can be hazardous to your health. Sources of xenoestrogens include plastics, pesticides, chemicals that are in makeup, shampoos, body washes, deodorants, body products other than that. And water is one of the worst ones. So, having a good filtration system in your house and cleaning up, storing things in plastic, not cooking in plastic, but glass and stainless steel, getting rid of all the chemicals in your daily hygiene products. That is going to take you so far if you just start doing that simple thing. What are some of the symptoms of this? Well, the xenoestrogens build up in the receptors, they build up in your fat cells, and it results in estrogen dominance. So basically fatigue, headaches, weight gain, decreased sex drive, all of these things that we've already talked about earlier with hormone dysregulation in men and women. So it's one of the reasons so many men struggle with estrogen dominance and low testosterone, because our lives are full of this chemical stress. And we're exposed to so much. Our liver literally cannot keep up with the detoxification of these things. Okay, so most of us have sluggish livers, which is a whole nother topic for another day. But how do you avoid xenoestrogens? I kind of already said that, but eating organic foods, limiting that pesticide and herbicide exposure, storing in glass or stainless steel, avoiding BPA, having a good water filter, skincare products, cleaning products, all of these things, man, going natural, right? So, and it's pretty cool when you do that and get rid of all this toxicity in your life. Oh, and the last, I said this is the last one, but birth control. Okay, informed consent and choice. So birth control, research shows that birth control methods may deplete the body of folic acid, vitamin Bs, Cs, Es, magnesium, selenium, zinc. I mean, it's pretty scary. These nutrients are key for energy metabolism, cellular health, mental health, and depletions in them can lead to all sorts of symptoms, but the mental health thing is probably the most kind of connected. And tell me what you think is dependent on selenium. Let's just use selenium for example. What gland is dependent on selenium? The thyroid. You have hypothyroid. You've been diagnosed and put on levothyroxine. Did they check your selenium levels? Did they talk to you about the birth control that you're on and have been for 15 years? More than likely not, right? And so these are the kind of things that, we need to be looking at. Weight gain. Hormonal birth control can also disrupt the gut microbiome, which we talked about how important that is, right? So you can be more susceptible to candida and yeast infections and malabsorption issues, leaky gut syndrome, autoimmune struggles, because those go right with leaky gut, inflammation, and so much more. Now, this is not an anti-birth control message. It is a pro-informed consent and education point. Has anyone ever told you these things? Have you researched these things? Do you know what you're doing? Does your doctor know what they're doing? I don't know, right? So this is where you have to advocate for yourself and for your daughters, right? Like to put a young girl on birth control for acne. I mean, I'm sorry, but I will never do that as a parent. And there's no judgment because you might not have known all of this, but it's just something that it can potentially lead down a path of really, really bad things. I just read another article 2 days ago, how they've related another study that's showing birth control, synthetic birth controls have been linked to certain types of brain cancers now. I mean, it's just kind of scary stuff. So be informed, be educated, take these things to your doctors. Okay, so now weight loss resistance and cardiovascular risk factors. I mean, I'll tell you what, everything that we just talked about leads right into these other two topics. So these aren't going to take nearly as long. But have you tried everything to lose weight and it just won't come off? Diets and exercise and all the things, even eating in a calorie deficit. And you're like, why? I'm taking in, less calories than I'm burning and I'm still not losing weight. Sometimes people gain weight on a calorie deficit. Why in the heck would that be? That doesn't make any logical sense to most like fitness trainers or nutritionists that are like, gosh, what's going on? Everything we just talked about, blood sugar issues, stress, gut issues. These are all causing this cycle that's just not allowing your body to function optimally. There are roadblocks. Okay, so here's the four most common roadblocks that prevent weight loss. It's especially true if you have bloating, digestive issues, joint pain, brain fog, mood swings, low energy, acne, autoimmune, trouble sleeping, cravings. Poor recovery, right? So number one, hormone imbalance. If your hormones are imbalanced, hard to lose weight. Hormones control hunger, metabolism, fat storage, muscle building, and sleep. If they are out of balance, weight loss will be difficult and or impossible, right? Number two is inflammation. Chronic inflammation causes slower metabolism. It causes hormonal imbalances. It causes bloating and gut issues, which is going to lead to malabsorption and leaky gut. It's going to lead to all these things. We got to control inflammation. Stress. Oh, that's a huge topic. So stress, especially chronic stress, puts our body into fight or flight mode, right? That sympathetic fight, flight dominance that so many of us have, right? It's prioritizing survival at that point. So hormones are definitely going to go out the tank. And all the other things. So 3 types of stress. I wanted to make this quick point. And on my YouTube channel, there's actually a whole talk on the nervous system, 101. It's what I call it. But, you have 3 types of stress. We think of stress as being like emotional, right? So jobs and relationships and money and health, that's emotional stress. That's bad enough. But then there's physical stress on top of that. There's chemical stress, like we talked about with xenoestrogens, which is just one topic, right? The chemical loads and toxicities in our environment. Our liver can't keep up. We are so full of toxic stuff. It's really, really difficult for things to work optimally. Okay, so that leads to weight loss resistance. So remember, cortisol increases the permeability of the gut. So it leads to leaky gut syndrome, which is going to be a big thing for a lot of people with weight loss resistance. Number 4 is the poor gut health. There are many signs of gut issues, but it can be very tricky as well. Often gut issues are asymptomatic, right? Like mine were for the most part. So bloating after meals, not normal. Gas after meals, not normal. Any kind of pain or heartburn, not normal. Not pooping every day, not normal. I don't care what anybody else tells you. We've had doctors and pediatricians with kids say that it's fine for a kid to go a week without pooping. I've heard 2 weeks before. It's just crazy. It's asinine. Don't find a new doctor if they're telling you that. Feeling inflamed after eating is not normal. Poor gut health can inhibit weight loss by poor absorption, nutrient deficiencies, increased inflammation and stress, decreased metabolic function, and leading to hormone imbalance. So a lot of important things going on there. So you may be doing all of the right things, checking all of the boxes, but if you don't know what is going on inside of your body, the biochemistry, the physiology, the genetics, then you can't always see the same results as other people. So study after study have now shown conclusive evidence that 2 people that are on the same nutrition plan, diet, exercise program, some lose weight and some don't. Why? It's because of the difference in the microbiome. That has been fact. It's fact. There's actually studies in mice that they do fecal microbiome transplants between obese and lean mice. They don't change anything else besides they take the bacteria and the poop out of one mice and put it in another and they lean out. It's crazy to think about that. This gut microbiome is so important. What else can impact weight gain and weight loss resistance? Cortisol, right? So yep, there it is again. Cortisol tells your body to release glucose from storage, like we talked about earlier, increase the blood sugar. So then the pancreas responds to that and increases insulin. Okay, so what does the insulin do? Well, it tells the glucose, because you don't need it, to go into fat cells, making them fatter. This is one of the cycles with stress and cortisol that leads to weight gain and also hugely to weight loss resistance, because this chronic cycle is just dumping that glucose into the fat cells, right? And they just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. We actually have the same number of fat cells, whether you're skinny or fat, right? It's just about how big they are. the size of them. Think about that. That's crazy, right? The chronic stress cortisol cycle can cause blood sugar dysregulation, thus increases fat stores. And last but not least, cardiovascular disease. 2,200 people die from heart disease each day in the US. Every 43 seconds, someone has a heart attack. It's still the #1 killer in men and women. And 50% of patients who have a heart attack or stroke have normal cholesterol levels. Now, why do I put that on there? Because cholesterol has been the bad guy. It's been the thing that's been thrown in jail, and it might not be its fault. It might be innocent. 50% of people have normal cholesterol levels. Like, so why are we still just looking at cholesterol? This is from the Cleveland Heart Lab, by the way. According to the Center for Disease Control, there are more people under the age of 65 who are dying from these preventable heart diseases and strokes than those older than 65. Once thought to be a man's disease, heart attacks and strokes will kill more women each year than the next 4 causes of death combined, including cancer. It's important, everybody. And then, unfortunately, what we've been taught about cardiovascular disease and the risk factors has only been part of the story, and the truth continues to be unfolding. So just like I just said, cholesterol has always been like the bad guy, triglycerides. But research now shows that inflammation in the arteries is the culprit. Measuring cholesterol, again, I just said that. Doctors, they just don't look at all the risk. The inflammation in the body. The inner lining of your arteries are damaged by this inflammation. This high blood sugar is one of the things that causes the inflammation. The high stress, the cortisol, right? These are the things that are causing the inflammation. And the inflammation damages the walls of the arteries. And then that's when the cholesterol can start infiltrating and start plaquing and building up. So things like smoking, diabetes, high blood pressure, but then the things that we just talked about are the things that disrupt the lining of those arteries, okay? Cholesterol testing provides part of the picture. Inflammation testing can provide a much more complete picture of your risk for heart disease. What does that look like? Here's the traditional standard lipid panel that we're all familiar with. We want this lower, we want this higher, we want this low, we want this low. But again, 50% of people, they don't have high cholesterol or even triglycerides. So it's not the best standard. There's strong evidence that other markers are more accurate for risk. ApoB should be on everyone's blood test. LPS should be on everyone's blood test. This is an inflammatory marker, C-reactive protein, homocysteine, another inflammatory marker. Then we can look at your blood sugar levels, not just fasting glucose, but hemoglobin A1C is even more important because it shows the average over 30 days. And then the HPA axis, the cortisol, that cortisol, curve that we want to see. So important in inflammation and inflammation risk. So again, 50% of heart attack victims have normal cholesterol levels. And then there's people who have high cholesterol their entire lives and never have a cardiovascular issue or incident. We've all had that, like seen that, been there. Oh man, my grandpa ate butter for, breakfast and never had an issue, right? Well, there's reasons for that. Okay. Maybe they had enough other things and genetics in their pocket where that didn't ever become an issue for them. Their body wasn't as inflamed. They didn't have hormone disruption as maybe we do, you do. So time check 101. Okay. The next slides are just kind of detailing some leaky gut stuff. So I'm going to fly through these because leaky gut is so common. I just want you guys to have some of the basics. So, and how it relates to cardiovascular disease, think about it like this 3-legged stool. Lipid dysregulation. So, the things that are on that lipid profile, LDL, triglycerides, HDL, cholesterol. Okay, number 2, that endothelial, which is the lining of the arteries. The dysfunction and inflammation there is leg number 2. And number 3 is insulin resistance. So those blood sugar regulation issues we talked about. Okay, so LPS specifically and leaky gut, so LPS is a big cardiovascular risk factor, and because it's one of the things that's causing leaky gut syndrome. It's been shown to damage the lining of the arteries and creating an inflammatory process as well, creating a vicious cycle. Right? So a summary to keep it really simple, inflammation via our lifestyle choices, nutrition, all these things, right, are causing the inflammation in the body, but absolutely in the gut lining and the artery lining as well. So again, if you have leaky gut syndrome, where things are getting through that aren't supposed to get through into your bloodstream, your body responds to that. You literally have an immune response. There's things in your blood stream there that are going to start attacking those things. It creates an autoimmune response. Let me give you an example. How many of you have some sort of like food sensitivity or allergy that you never used to have? Like say in your 20s or 30s or 40s or even later, you started to develop some new allergy. This is why. More than likely, this is why. Because you've had some sort of leaky gut for so long that the body has been responding to, let's say those peanuts or those, whatever it may be. It could be any food, really. Eggs are highly reactive. I never used to have a problem with eggs. Why do they make me bloated and gassy and inflamed now? Because the body has had an immune reaction to them for so long, it's hit its threshold, and now it's giving you like warning signals, basically is what that means. Leaky gut syndrome, so crucial to understand. So I just kind of explained that these particles pass through, they're not digested all the way, and the immune system begins to attack it. And that leads to oxidative stress. It leads to damage basically in our system. Okay, so patients with inflammatory bowels appear to have a higher risk for coronary artery heart disease despite the lower prevalence of classical risk factors like LDL, cholesterol, triglycerides, indicating additional links between the gut and the heart. This was in the European Heart Journal, right? Our gut and our cardiovascular system are directly linked. Here are triggers that increase gut permeability, so that leaky gut. So it's not an all-inclusive list, but antibiotics absolutely destroy our gut microbiome, right? So it's like a nuclear bomb, right? And if you're not doing things after a set of antibiotics, I don't have time to go into it right now, but that's what I work with people on, because you have to go through certain protocols in order to heal your gut after a course of antibiotics. And this is one thing with our kids. We're destroying their guts from the time they're early. Ear infections with antibiotics, strep with antibiotics. We're killing the gut, which is going to lead to so many more issues in the future. And then you can see other things there. So, and then yeasts, chronic stress, gluten's a big one, sugar, artificial sweeteners, all increase leaky gut syndrome. What do we do to start healing the gut and the cardiovascular system? So lifestyle changes. We got to exercise. We got to quit things like smoking. You got to manage your stress. However that looks for you, you got to start implementing things that are going to manage that. Limiting alcohol intake, making the nutritional changes and sticking to them, and then sleep and recovery and hydration are all so crucial to helping your body deflame and manage the cortisol, etc. Okay, so we need to eat more fiber and fermented foods. Fiber and fermented foods are literally the fuel for your gut bacteria. So many of us focus on protein and carbs and fats and ratios, which is all great and needed, but man, you got to look at your fiber and adding in some fermented foods. Omega-3s, probiotics, vegetables, diversification of the color of what you're getting in your diet, adding a lot of herbs and spices, man, like just plant-based medicine, healthy fats. And then, of course, I think most people need to take vitamin D3 with K2. If you take vitamin D3 and the doctor hasn't told you to take one with K2, they're also missing the boat, because what that does, that combination actually limits calcium from plaquing up your arteries, hardening of your arteries. So it's actually been shown in some studies to reverse arteriosclerosis. So the right dosage is important. So again, that's something you can test for. Avoiding sugar, ultra-processed foods, the bad fats, right? So the vegetable oils. Dairy is inflammatory. Gluten is inflammatory. So for most of us, even whether you know it or not. So that's something to really pay attention to. Okay, so obviously avoiding all things on that list can be hard, but discipline, right? You got to do it. And then here's some tips for eating to help regulate this blood sugar stuff. Eat protein, veggies, and fats before other carbs, like the simple carbs or whatever. So this is going to slow the glycemic response. So it's going to slow down the breakdown of the sugar and release of sugar and insulin spikes. So walk after you eat. Every time, go for a short walk. Eat, walk, move, do something. That's going to help. Start the day with protein and fat, and avoid carbs and sugar altogether if you can. I mean, the bad carbs is what I mean there. So we need carbohydrate, but just good carbs, complex carbs. Avoid having sugars, alcohol, or other refined carbs before protein, veggies, or fat. And always pair carbs with protein and fat to blunt the glycemic spike, right? So pairing those things, don't ever just have a carb, always put protein with it. So if I have an apple, I have almond butter with it, right? Things like that, right? So it's really good practice. And then 8 ways to lower cortisol levels naturally. We talked about sunlight. That's the sunrise, sunset. That's so important. Prioritizing good sleep. Practice mindfulness and gratitude. This is part of a morning routine, like just waking up and having that silent time, or maybe even in the shower, practicing mindfulness, gratitude. What are you thankful for? I mean, that's shown to increase neurotransmitters in your brain that are going to put you more at ease and help this cortisol. Enjoy a balanced diet, right? Like we just talked about. Make time for play and laughter. These things are so important that not enough of us do. And then be physically active. Practice deep breathing, belly breathing, box breathing. Check out my YouTube. Again, I have videos about how to, stabilize your core and breathe properly, etc. Stay hydrated and limit caffeine and sugar intake, right? Those 2 things are going to hack your cortisol. And finally, this is kind of just an outline of how I kind of look at people's healing journey, the 7R program. First, we have to reset. You got to reset your body through lifestyle changes. You have to remove the stressors, right? The physical, the emotional, the chemical. You got to do your best to remove those things that are causing this inflammation, the toxic burden on your body. You have to replace. So replacing things like digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid, these are things that I commonly have to do with my patients, because if you're not digesting food properly, you're going to have the issues we've talked about today. And then re-inoculating that bacterial flora in our guts. Most of us, it's not sufficient. It's dysbiotic. Things are going wrong with it. So we need to improve the good bacteria. We need to kill off the bad bacteria and yeasts, and that's going to help you flourish in your gut. So, and again, we've talked about the prebiotic foods or the fiber and the fermented foods, right? Like artichokes, garlic, leeks, onions, tofu, etc. Grains such as barley, oats, flaxseed, chia seeds are great sources of prebiotics. And then repairing, right? So part of that is repairing the gastrointestinal tract. So this is where it really gets tricky, because you have to know what to repair. Not everybody's the same, okay? But there's some examples there. Antioxidants, zinc, omega-3s, amino acid glutamine is really good for repairing the gut lining. So these are things that are so easy to get your hands on and can really go a long way. And then we need to rebalance. It's important to pay attention to lifestyle choices like sleep, exercise, and stress, because that all can affect the system, right? So managing and balancing these factors promotes optimal digestive tract health. And then, of course, we want to retest things. So down the line, once you've tried some healing protocols, you want to retest, are things actually going in the right direction? Doing blood work with some of those inflammatory markers and the apoproteins, and those things are so cheap and easy to do. I have a lot of my patients do it every 6 months, just so we see blood sugar levels, the cortisol testing, pretty relatively inexpensive to do those. So to know if you're on the right track is pretty easy to test. Took a deep breath. We covered a lot of stuff today. We covered stress and cortisol, inflammation and hormones. It's time for you to take action, right? On your own, with the people here at LP Fitness, at your gym, wherever you go. The fitness component is so important. But I'll tell you, your deal today, because I know a lot of you are sitting there thinking, I wouldn't even know where to start. Of course, I gave you some easy tips and things that you can do, but testing is really kind of at the key of a lot of this, is you don't know what to do unless you test what's going on. And this is why I wanted to give you guys this deal today. If you're ready to change your life in the biggest way, this is for you. I have room right now to take on about 10 new patients. So don't hesitate if you know you need help, hope, and answers. What it is the 16-week, what I call kind of a kickstart, a big kickstart to regaining your health program, right? So what does it include? It's a 16-week online course, actually. So you're going to be learning a lot of things, but it's at your own pace. You have access to it forever. It's not like you have to finish the education class in 16 weeks. You also get unlimited access to me, basically. You can chat, message me 24/7. But the big part is 4 one-on-one meetings with me that are about an hour long during that 16-week program, okay? We deep dive into your health, your lifestyle, your habits, your stress, really everything. I make recommendations. We do lab work. We do the interpretation and summary of the lab work. And then we follow up a couple times through the rest of the program to make sure you're on track. I'm a coach, I'm a guide, I'm an accountability partner, right? So that's what's cool. It's what I love to do. And then weekly live calls with guest experts and in other health fields to educate for Q&A. That's part that people love that. They love learning from other people in a mental health therapist, primary care doctors, nutritionists, dietitians. I've had so many people on in the past and will continue. I have great relationships with so many providers that have so much knowledge. And then at the end of the 16 weeks, is most people, we want to move you into more of a membership plan. So on a monthly basis, you get access and basically all of this same stuff, but on continuing at a reduced rate. So now, if you're watching this recording, it is right now, what is it, April 7th of 2024. This deal is for people that I'm doing this presentation for, and pretty soon after. I can't guarantee that this is going to be the same deal if you're watching this in a year, you know, but it's I'll give you something wherever the price is at that point. Because right now this program is $2,500 normally, but $500 off for the next 10 people, right? So that's a heck of a deal for $2,000, man. You're not going to get anyone spending more time, putting more effort and energy into figuring out what's going on with you and helping you overcome that hurdle and get rid of those roadblocks, and you will in this program. Okay, so first 10 people, you can email me, Dr. Scott at drscottfm.com. I'm going to have my phone number up here in a second, but this QR code is also something you can utilize. That's a free call with me, 30-minute free call. You can use it yourself. If you're interested and want to ask more questions, you can pass this along to family, friends who couldn't be here tonight. And I'd also encourage you guys to follow my social media, YouTube page, etc. You can just, whoa, I accidentally hit the button there. That's not what I wanted to do. So, and if you need someone who needs help and they're like, man, the free call, give them the free call link, scan that QR code, and then just pass that link along to them and they can schedule a time with me. Okay. And then keep an eye out on my social media. Pretty soon, end of April, maybe in May sometime, I'm going to do a stress workshop because so many of us need this. It's going to be a practical way for us to look at your HPA axis, your cortisol. We're not lab testing, but we're doing some other things, using other tools to look at where you're at. And then I'm going to give you tips and things to do, techniques, and also, you know, some ideas for foods and supplements, etc. Okay. So send me a text message or email with your name, and I will honor the first 10 people with $500 off. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. Get to it. Take action. Now's the time to change your life, guys. All right. Thank you so much. And especially, this is more for the live talk I'm doing later. So if you're recording, if you're watching the recording, this won't make sense. But Liza and her team at LP Fitness and Transformation here in Lincoln, I'm doing this talk later on today, actually, April 7th, 2024. This was kind of my dry run, my practice, but figured I'd record it. And they're an amazing place. So if you need someone's help with the fitness journey, and this coming Saturday, I'm doing another talk at Lincoln Nutrition and Fitness, another great place in Lincoln. Just get to someone who knows what they're doing in the fitness world, and it's going to marry really well what we're doing in functional medicine. So, all right, y'all, I am so how do I get back to my screen? There I am. So I'm just so thankful and grateful for you guys watching this. A little over an hour is what it took me. Get a hold of me if you have any questions or concerns. Again, you had my contact info there on the last page. So look forward to hearing from a lot of you and helping you regain your health, take it back into your own hands, and stop, you know, just compromising and just going with the flow of whatever your providers have told you. All right, guys. All right, Dr. Scott, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.